Good evening, racing fans, and welcome to another edition of Ross Racing, brought to you by the Rockingham Dragway and RockinghamDragway.com. I am Matt Earlson, of course, alongside with me for the ride, Russell Parker. So NASCAR drivers clicked their heels on Saturday night at Kansas Speedway. Drivers, fans, and industry leaders of the sport agreed that this was the best race of the season. Now, that's something you don't usually hear at a 1.5 mile track, but with the new aero and horsepower package implemented this season, folks saw what they were promised heading into the season. Now, it was Brad Keselowski who took the checkered flag after going into overtime, but Keselowski's 30th career win was not the big buzz, Russell. What made this race so good as compared to the rest of the races this season?
A lot of people have been wanting more passing, more competitiveness in the middle of the field. You want to see more people running up front, different drivers taking the lead, pushing it hard, and they got this out of Kansas. I mean, he had 23 lead changes among 12 drivers. There were some unusual drivers out there, such as Alex Bowman. You had Clinton Boyer, who led a few laps. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chris Buescher, who's definitely a driver you don't hear at all being up front. And of course, William Byron was running a little well too. Some standout drivers that also ran up front. Eric Jones, who finished third. Jimmy Johnson finally getting back in some groove here. All the Hendrick drivers done pretty well, I would say. So Johnson finished sixth. Tyler Reddick, who heard of him, finished ninth, and Chris Buescher got 10th. So, a lot of different drivers you don't usually see running in the top 10. You had a lot of drivers as well who had to start in the back. I believe it was 11 drivers who failed something for inspection. So they all had to start in the back. So you had a lot of fast cars running through the rest of the field in that first couple of stages. And made it a lot more action-packed than usual.
So, moving forward with this rules package, which upcoming tracks do you see benefiting to a race that we saw at Kansas?
So, Kansas is a 1.5 mile track, and it was a night race, which is not, we haven't had that formula for this package yet, where we've had a night race on a 1.5 mile. We've had Las Vegas, we've had Atlanta. Atlanta was good. Some people didn't really like Las Vegas too much. But I think Kansas, if you look at some tracks that are coming up, such as the Charlotte 600, you've got that one. It's going to be a day to night race, so maybe the race is going to be better as the night goes on. Kentucky in July is a night race as well. I think Darlington, even though it's not configured the same way as Charlotte or as Kansas, I think it could still put out a pretty good, solid race. In Las Vegas back in September, it'll be a night race during that time, so I think we're going to get an even better race than what we saw at the beginning of the season.
All right, so Team Penske and Joe Gibbs continue to be stingy with the win stats here in 2019, but Hendrick Motorsports, who you were just talking about, was finally able to put a chink in the Ford Toyota armor with a Chase Elliott win back at Talladega. Now, many thought that this was just a one-off deal with Hendrick. However, the Chevy team has continued to be a threat at Dover and Kansas, with Alex Bowman now up to 3 consecutive second-place finishes. Jimmy Johnson has also seen improvements, and Elliott has not faltered since his win at Talladega. So, Russell, is Hendrick finally getting away from their troubles?
I think so. If you look at the trend lines, and I have a graphic for this, where you're going to see that there. Even William Byron, who hasn't been a lot of talk right now between the 4 Hendrick drivers, he hasn't really faltered below the 20th position throughout the season so far. Chase Elliott has been consistent. He's running top 10s almost every other week, just about every week now at this point. Of course, getting the win at Talladega. And Alex Bowman, he's only had one bad race overall this season, and it was a crash at Phoenix. I'm not sure how he ran prior to that wreck, but obviously with the rest of the numbers, the way they look, I think he was fine. And of course, Jimmy Johnson, this was his second best finish of the season. His best one was at Texas. It was 5th. So Johnson's getting back into his groove. I think you're going to see Hendrick continue to play a big factor as we move on to other tracks in the season. Johnson is going to have he's done pretty well at Michigan. We'll be coming into that later on in the summer. So I think as you get heated up, so is Hendrick.
All right. Well, since the AllStar Race is up next, that means we have a break from points racing. So let me ask you this, and I'll give you a chance next week if you want to change it. But with Bowman having 3 back-to-back runner-up finishes, does he win the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte in 2 weeks, or will it be Mr. 7-time Jimmy Johnson?
Jimmy Johnson is probably the obvious one to go with here. He's got in the last 6 races, because that's how many Bowman's had in the 600. Johnson's got a win, average finish 12th. Bowman, his average finish is 26.7. But with the way Bowman has been racing consistently, that motivation builds on a driver, especially when you're finally getting to a point that you've never been to. And Bowman's been around the business for a while. He's not new to the Cup Series. He's racing some smaller teams. So when you got a team that's being backed very well and you got a driver who's getting more confident, knowing that he should have won some of these races, I think you're going to see him step on the gas pedal a little bit harder come 600.
All right. So you mentioned a couple of drivers that have been in the groove. So let's talk about it. Who has been in the groove?
Tyler Reddick is definitely one. Like I said earlier, you don't really see him running out front. And as a matter of fact, he's not even a full-time Cup regular. He's an Xfinity regular. He's only raced only in another race in the Cup Series this season. That was Daytona. He finished 27th and won the Rex. So for him to come out swinging hard in a non-plate race, that really speaks volumes for him. He started out in the Truck Series, done really well. I believe he even raced the Rockingham Truck Race. So he's been around the Truck Series, and he's moved up into the Xfinity Series. He's doing very well there. I think he's going to continue to translate that as he gets into the Cup Series. And for the Truck Series, rather, I got Brandon Jones, who's another Xfinity regular. He was on his second race in a truck this season. He hasn't raced a full-time Truck Series race, a full season. So for him to kind of be stepping in and out. Now, it was with a Cowbush car, or truck rather, but still it's pretty impressive when you're not running that experience all the time. You still get a solid finish.
All right, those are your drivers in the groove. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the All-Star Race is this weekend. And while we have a break in the point racing, let's take a look at the standing. As we currently sit, Joey Logano holds the top position over Kyle Busch by 9 points. Now, there's about a 30-point breakaway between Busch and Kevin Harvick. Now, if you look at the playoff grid, there's an 8-point gap between 16th Jimmy Johnson and 17th Ryan Newman. And we've had 6 different winners so far who are locked into the playoffs already. Russell, with the upcoming 13 races left before we begin the playoffs, who do you see below the cut line that could potentially win to get in?
It's hard to believe that we're already getting to a point where it's 13 races left in the season. I think Austin Dillon is one of the first drivers that comes to my mind on who can win a potential race. Daytona's coming up. He's won there already. Michigan, there's 2 Michigan races that he can run solid in. But I would say that maybe Ricky Stenhouse Jr. probably could get a win there because Fords usually run really well at Michigan. I guess because it's in Michigan and Detroit's there as well. So I guess it goes hand in hand. William Byron's another driver. I think in addition to Daytona, I think Watkins Glen. We saw Hendrick do pretty solid there, especially with Chase Elliott winning last year. I think you're going to see that continue on with the Hendrick trend. Maybe William Byron could be that standout driver for that race.
All right. Now, if they can't win, do you see any of the drivers below the cut line making it on points alone and racing consistently throughout the remainder of the regular season?
Ryan Newman is probably the top man for that. He's sitting on the bubble right now, and I think that with him, in the past, he's gotten to the final 4 of the playoff format on consistency. Never won a race, but he made it through consistency. He is probably the best consistent driver you can find. But if let's just say that Austin Dillon doesn't win, I still think he can also find his way on points. Now, you can say that when one of these drivers do get in, somebody's got to get bumped out, and that will be Jimmy Johnson, who's sitting on that bubble right now. So if one of those drivers do get out, I don't see another one's coming into play because not only you have to jump Johnson, you have to jump the other driver. So it's going to be really difficult to see multiple drivers get in above that cutoff line at this point. I think maybe just one only on points.
All right, let's head to the Rock Block. Of course, everything going on at the Rockingham Dragway, and you can also find it on the RockinghamDragway.com. Now, of course, everybody's been talking the last couple weeks, and obviously this week, about Epicenter Music Festival. 100,000 people showed up. I know there were a couple of traffic issues, but overall, it sounds like everybody had a great time. However, they're not done. They had to turn around, take all of that away, and get set up for the Rugged Maniac that's taking place this weekend. And if you're not familiar, the Rugged Maniac is basically like Recess for grown-ups, except their playground has a 3-story water slide, trampolines, a fire jump, and then there's a huge festival right in the middle of everything with a DJ and plenty of beer. You got to have plenty of beer. The 5,000-person party is going to be starting at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, and the festival and games are completely free. Now, the 3-mile course, which does cost to enter, is packed with over 20 epic obstacles designed to both challenge and thrill those maniacs of all fitness levels, from couch potatoes to marathoners. I'm more on the couch potato side.
Yeah, I am too.
If you're heading out, parking is $10 per car if you signed up online. If you just show up, it's $15. And, of course, military and students get a $10 discount with their ID. So is this something you'd ever join in on?
I would like to go out there and check it out. Like I said, I'm not really the fit type of person to go out there and try to run an obstacle course. And plus, they get really dirty. I don't know if I want to get my clothes dirty. But, I think having this right after Epicenter, another festival coming up, I think you're going to see a lot of people out there getting really excited for this. From what I see on their website, I think they're already almost full in for participants. So if you haven't gotten your entry yet, you better go ahead and do it now.
It does fill up quickly. And, I'm more of the hanging out for the DJ and alcohol part than I am the fitness part. But, 5,000 people usually is a lot, but compared to last weekend, it's going to seem minuscule. So, but nonetheless, Rugged Maniac heading out to the Rockingham Dragway this weekend. So head on out there. That is your rock block. So the AllStar Race is a special weekend event for NASCAR as the best of the best get together and race for a grand prize of $1 million. It's literally checkers of records for the drivers who qualified for the race. Now, those who did make it got in on wins from the 2018 and 2019 seasons. They're past All-Star winners and or Cup champions, and that gives a total of 15 who are already locked in. As for the rest of the field, they'll have 4 chances to get in with the All-Star Open. The winner of each stage will advance to the big race, and then the fan vote will also get in. So, Russell, do you have any predictions on who's going to be making the big dance?
So you can get 3 different people. Actually, have the 4 people in this, but somebody could actually win all 3 of these stages. But I have separate winners for each stage. I've got Kyle Larson win the first one. He did really well in the Open last year and got in. Alex Bowman, winner of stage 2. Again, consistency has been his motivation lately. I think he'll get the second stage. I think when Kyle Larson wins, he'll probably kick his car back to the back a little bit, not to get any damage for the All-Star race coming up. And then I think the race winner will be Daniel Suarez. I think Suarez has been a kind of I don't know, how do I put it? He's not really been in the center of attention, but he's been there, and he's been edging forward for a win, and I think he can do that. And for the fan vote, I'm going to have to go with Bubba Wallace. I think that he has won the hearts and the minds of all of NASCAR lately, and I would love to see him get in.
All right. Well, the All-Star Race is known to have changes every year to the format. This year is not that different, however. There are 4 stages, 30 laps in the first stage, followed by a pair of 20-lap stages, and then the final is a 15-lap shootout. There are no mandatory pit strategies. The overtime rule will apply to all stages, and there will be normal stage break procedures. So, Russell, do you agree with the way the format's been set up, or would you change it? What do you think?
I like the fact that the overtime rule is in place, where if a stage ends under a caution, they'll have it continue on, so they won't lose any laps. So you have a little overtime shootout. What I don't like is that there's no pit strategy. Now I know in the past they would have it where before the final stage, drivers would come down, they get 4 tires, and then you come back out however you lined up from exiting pit road. But what I would like to see happen is in that final shootout, you add in that final stage, you have the teams, they have to make a mandatory 4-tire pit stop under the green flag. I think just the chaos of that, it really puts the real pressure on the teams because you got to get in there fast, you got to get out fast. We got out really fast without getting a penalty. I think it would just be really fun to watch that, and I think everyone, you always see these little 15, 20-lap shootouts for the All-Star race, and not a lot happens between them. They can happen, but sometimes they really don't. So I think adding this will really spice it up.
All right. So before we end the show, I got to get a prediction from you. Who will be king in the Queen City?
I like Jimmy Johnson in this one. He's got 4 wins here, 17 races. I actually witnessed one of his wins. Jimmy Johnson outdrove Joey Logano. I was so mad at that race. But Kevin Harvick also has 2 wins out of 18 races being there. Now, Logano has an average finish of 6.9. That's the best. And Ryan Newman, again, he's very consistent. He's also got over 1,500 laps led in all of the time he's raced in it. But I am going to pick Kurt Busch to win it. 8 top 5s there, and he's been very strategic all season, and the AllStar Race has been won many times on strategy, and I think he's the man for it.
All right, Russell's predicting Kurt Busch to have an extra $1 million in his pocket once the weekend is over. Speaking of being over, that's going to do it for this edition of Ross Racing. Of course, brought to you by the Rockingham Dragway and the RockinghamDragway.com. We appreciate them sponsoring the show. That is Russell Parker. I am Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here on the track again next week for another edition of Ross Racing.